Hello, and welcome to this edition of Virtually Sunday, a ministry of Whatsoever You Do Incorporated. I'm the Reverend Bridget Flad Daniels, the senior pastor of Union Congregational United Church of Christ in downtown Green Bay. The gospel that we are assigned this Sunday is one of my favorites. It's from the fourth chapter of the Gospel of Mark, where we hear of Jesus taming the seas. Most of you probably know the story. Jesus and his friends go out fishing late at night. Jesus falls asleep in the boat. A storm comes up, and his friends wake him up, asking him to do something about it. Jesus calms the seas, and everyone is amazed. I love this story, and so I was really excited when I was tasked to teach our middle school faith formation this spring, and this was the scripture that I was tasked to explore with them. Now, I know it sounds crazy, but I love middle school. And when I was tasked to explore this passage, I dug and dug and dug in my files to find a worksheet that I had used with kids probably 24 times in my previous life. It's a worksheet that's just multiple choice questions, but each one of them can lead to really deep, profound conversation. And so I thought, as I was tasked again with exploring this passage with you all this week, maybe the discussion questions here could be interesting to you too. The first one is, if I'd been one of the disciples, when the boat was about to sink in the storm, I probably would have. And then it gives these possible reactions. I probably would have jumped overboard. I probably would have screamed for help. I probably would have frozen. I probably would have bailed water. I probably would have taken command of the whole situation. I probably would have acted like nothing was wrong. Now, of course, when I'm doing this in youth ministry, what the kids don't realize is that all of those different possibilities speak so much about who someone is and how we deal with difficulties. Do we jump overboard at the first sign of trouble, scream for help, freeze, bail water, take command of the whole situation, act like there's nothing wrong? The second question is, I think the disciples awakened Jesus because they resented someone sleeping in a time of crisis, were afraid for his life, were afraid for their own lives, wanted a little help from him, or expected a miracle. Again, how someone answers that speaks so much about how they deal with the rest of life. The next one asks, Jesus calmed the wind because he wanted to impress the disciples? People rarely choose that one. Relieve their anxiety? That one's a little more common. Demonstrate his power? Every once in a while I have someone who checks that one. Teach them a faith lesson? Again, that one rarely is the one that people choose. Or show them how to deal with future storms in their lives? Of course, that's the one that I think it is, but it's also interesting that very often that's not what the kids choose. After I turned 2 pages. Then, of course, those were pretty surface level questions to ask. The next side of the worksheet goes a little deeper. When I'm going through a storm in my life, I usually turn to someone that I can trust, withdraw into myself, turn to God, get very touchy and irritable, stay calm and collected, act like nothing is wrong. This is where it starts to really get meaty about how we react and how we engage with the storms in our lives. If I told my family about some of the struggles I'm going through right now, they would probably die on the spot, kick me out of the house, reach out to me, try to understand, pour out their love as never before, or share some of their struggles with me. One of the things that I've found over the years in using this worksheet is that the age group with which I use this worksheet really, really shapes how people answer that question. The younger kids say that they think that their families would try to understand and pour out their love as never before. By the time I have high schoolers using this worksheet, there's more of the die on the spot, kick me out of the house. Maybe they say that their families would try to understand or pour out their love. But there's something that happens in those teen years. I don't know if it's because the problems they're dealing with are deeper, or because there's a disconnection in relationship. But that one's a hard one, a really hard one. And so, one of the things that I love about this question, especially working with this worksheet with younger kids, is to remind them that when they are struggling, it's if they're not able to go to their families, we really hope that they'll be able to come to their church family. The next question says, somehow I've gotten the feeling that it's not okay to have a problem. It's okay for me to have a problem, but the same is not okay for others. It's okay for others to have a problem, but the same is not okay for me. It's okay to have a problem, but it's not okay to talk about it. It's okay to have a problem and to talk about it. Again, doing this worksheet with middle schoolers, they're pretty earnest. They're pretty willing to say that it's okay to have a problem and to talk about it. Unfortunately, we know that as life goes on, so many people end up in answering that question differently if they're answering honestly. The seventh question is, if I could compare my own life right now to a person in the boat, I would be floating on smooth waters, feeling just a few ripples, sensing that a storm is brewing, going through a storm, bailing water like mad to keep afloat, calling for help, seeing the storm wind subside and the calm return, or checking the weather reports. Again, this is a great way to remind folks of empathy, that wherever it is that each one of us is in a storm, other folks are in different places in their lives. The weather is different for each of us. And lastly, be quiet, be still, is what Jesus says in Mark 4:39. If Jesus were to speak these words to me today, I would take them to mean settle down, shut up and listen, hang in there, expect a miracle. Learn the secret of relying on God's energy. Relax and let God handle this. Commit your life to God and let God run it, or let go and let God. You can see why this is such a glorious passage to me, why I love it so much, and why I love that worksheet so much. There's so much for each one of us in this passage. My prayer for you this week is that no matter what the weather report is in your life, that you are able to be calm, be still, and rely on God's energy. Be at peace, friends. Thanks be to God.